The breaking news moments ago, New York City reversing its decision, now announcing it will close public schools. More than 1 million children out of class. California closing bars and wineries, telling people 65 and older to stay home. As the death toll in the U.S. rises, more than 60 patients now dead. More than 3,000 cases nationwide. One town asking all residents to self-quarantine. Some states and major cities ordering extreme restrictions on restaurants. Police in New Orleans clearing out Bourbon Street. Dr. Anthony Fauci's dire warning, hundreds of thousands of Americans could die if the spread of the virus is not stopped. Also breaking, chaos at the nation's airports. New screenings causing massive bottlenecks of Americans rushing home from Europe. Social distancing nearly impossible with travelers crunched together. President Trump defending the process, calling the screening very precise. This just in, the Fed again cutting rates, this time to near zero, as the coronavirus infects the economy. Nike joining the growing list of major retailers like Apple shutting down stores across the country. What to expect when the markets reopen tomorrow. Healthcare workers pushed to the limit. Hospitals bracing for a possible surge of patients. In some cases, supplies running low, including masks and ventilators. President Trump speaking a short time ago, and news about his coronavirus test. Dr. Jen Ashton is here tonight with your questions. The grim headline from overseas, Italy's deadliest day, 368 deaths in 24 hours. Spain becoming a new pandemic hot zone. Germany closing most of its borders. And tonight, we take a close look at the healthcare heroes, the men and women on the front lines.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Tom Llamas. We begin tonight with breaking developments in the coronavirus pandemic. The death toll rising in the U.S., more than 60 dead, the number of cases topping 3,000. Just a short time ago, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio reversing course, closing public schools for more than 1 million school-aged children. New York State reporting its first 3 deaths, and now with more than 700 cases, the most in the country. Police in New Orleans clearing out Bourbon Street. States and cities across the country ordering new restrictions for bars and restaurants. Just moments ago, President Trump appearing in the White House briefing room, updating his administration's response to the outbreak. Overseas, Italy's death toll soaring. 368 deaths reported in just 24 hours. And back in the U.S., California's governor with an urgent call for everyone 65 and older to self-isolate. ABC's Ariel Reshef leads us off.
Tonight, some American cities virtually shutting down. In New York, the governor closing the public school system, saying it's the safest thing for the 1 million plus children.
I think it's a great decision.
There's no reason to put us in jeopardy if we can easily have a good alternative at home.
The entire state of Ohio closing all bars and restaurants beginning at 9 p.m. tonight. Illinois also ordering restaurants to close to customers and only serve takeout. The state of California shutting down all bars and wineries and calling for home isolation for everyone 65 and over.
We recognize that social isolation for millions of Californians is anxiety-inducing, but we recognize what all of the science bears out.
In South Boston, the same reality. Business at bars and restaurants halted. In New Orleans, police clearing iconic Bourbon Street last night after an order went out to clear the area. Drastic measures taken as cases spiked to roughly 3,000 in the U.S. The death toll is now surpassing 60. At least 3 fatalities in New York, the latest a 79-year-old with multiple underlying health issues. Tonight, a new hotspot in New Jersey. In Teaneck, at least 18 people diagnosed. Officials declaring an emergency, encouraging all residents to self-quarantine.
I don't take the actions that I did lightly. I know the extreme impact that they have on the people and business owners in Bergen County, but there is no other choice.
Drive-through testing now increasing. Cars lining up in Wilmington. And in the containment area, hit hard in New Rochelle. A look inside the testing process. A healthcare worker fully covered, reaching through the window and taking a swab. But now, ABC learning of some problems. Amanda Macy posted this on Facebook, saying her husband has the virus, but getting the test results was a nightmare.
We still don't have the original test results that were sent out from Thursday, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. These tests have got to be prioritized based on severity and acuity of these cases.
Her husband is now recovering. Tonight, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo demanding the White House nationalize the response. His state with the most cases, at least 750.
You can't have a patchwork quilt of policies. You cannot do this ad hoc, one state at a time. Make a decision, tell the states this is the decision, and then let's go.
All right, Ariel Reshef joins us now live. Ariel, let's go back to the school closings here in New York, the largest school system in the nation. It was a difficult decision because so many families here rely on school for meals and supervision, just like in other parts of the country.
That's right, Tom. So many families depending on those schools to provide meals and supervision for the kids. And officials say they are working to figure out how to keep kids fed and taken care of during this tough time. But Mayor Bill de Blasio did say that school could be canceled here for the rest of the school year. Tom.
Ariel Reshef with those breaking developments tonight. All right, Ariel, thank you. Also breaking tonight, chaos at America's airports. Travelers rushing home, worried about President Trump's new European travel ban. Images health officials would rather not be seen. You see it here. Hundreds of travelers crowded on top of each other at Chicago's O'Hare Airport awaiting medical screenings. The president today defending the process. Here's ABC's Mona Kosar Abdi.
Tonight, the nation's biggest airports thrown into chaos as enhanced coronavirus screenings cause massive delays through customs. At Chicago's O'Hare, thousands of people returning to the U.S. herded on escalators going nowhere. Long, winding lines at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, travelers standing shoulder to shoulder, some waiting up to 7 hours, all at a time when Americans are being urged to keep their distance from one another.
Through customs and then another line to CDC where I had my temperature taken.
The federal government rushing to implement President Trump's restrictions on travel from 28 European countries, now including the United Kingdom and Ireland. 15-year-old Liam Elliott, who's returning from Switzerland to Virginia, says everyone was in close proximity.
Was anyone handing out masks or any kind of protective equipment? No.
Illinois' governor slamming the president on Twitter, calling the lines unacceptable. Chicago's mayor pleading for help.
We need more screeners here at O'Hare, and they need them at other airports across the country.
President Trump responding late today, asking people to, quote, pardon the interruptions and delays, adding, quote, it is very important that we be vigilant and careful.
All right, Mona joins us now live from Dulles Airport, one of the 13 U.S. airports where Americans can return home from Europe. And Mona, what are officials saying about the possibility of restricting travel within the U.S.?
Tom, Dr. Anthony Fauci says domestic travel restrictions have not been seriously discussed or they're not in the immediate future. But he did say that the administration remains open-minded. Tom?
Mona Kosar Abdi for us tonight. Mona, thank you. Now to the breaking news concerning the U.S. economy after the stock market's volatile week and falling into a bear market. The Fed taking emergency action today, cutting rates once again, this time to near zero. President Trump urging Americans not to hoard as people rush to stock up on supplies. ABC's chief business correspondent Rebecca Jarvis has more.
Tonight, the Federal Reserve announcing rare emergency action to calm financial fears, cutting interest rates to near 0%, their lowest level since the Great Recession. President Trump, who's been critical of the Fed previously, tonight applauding.
And I want to congratulate the Federal Reserve. That's a big difference, quite a bit, about a point.
Since the record highs last month, the Dow is now down 21%. For the average 401k that started the year at $112,300, that would mean a drop as much as $23,500. Now, one of the nation's top economists, Mark Zandi, predicting our new normal. Store closures like Nike and Apple, restaurant traffic and travel way down, will cost the economy $120 billion in GDP by the end of March. Issuing this warning.
Well, the economy is shrinking. We're in recession. People are pulling back.
But Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin disagrees, saying the virus won't cause a recession.
We're clearly going to have a slowdown. And later in the year, obviously, the economic activity will pick up as we confront this virus.
Tom, the Fed says the U.S. economy entered this challenging time on strong financial footing. They say they'll keep the new policy in place until it's clear the U.S. economy has weathered the storm and is back on track. Tom?
Rebecca Jarvis tonight on that breaking news from the Fed. Rebecca, thank you. Tonight, President Trump spoke in the White House briefing room along with his coronavirus task force led by Vice President Pence. Our Trevor Ault was inside the room, and Trevor, just yesterday, the vice president promised multiple times we would hear about this website they said they were working on with Google to help out with testing, but there were some conflicting messages on that. What did the vice president say tonight?
Well, Tom, the vice president actually just answered this with some slight specificity. He says they're hoping sometime early this week they can roll out a website, but not yet the full version of it. They think it's going to just be a questionnaire where people can determine whether or not they need to get tested on that. And then other than that, they're going to hope to roll out further websites in local and state levels as well, so people can figure out if they need to be tested, where they need to go. The vice president did say, Tom, that now there's testing available in all 50 states.
All right, that's good news. And Trevor, the president spoke directly to the American people, urging Americans not to panic, that grocery stores will be stocked. Let's listen to what he had to say.
They're going to work 24 hours around the clock, keeping their stores stocked. I would like to say that people shouldn't go out and buy. We're going to all be great. We're going to be so good.
All right, Trevor, the president saying he spoke with the heads of grocery store companies today?
Yeah, and Tom, not only that, the president said the heads of those grocery stores asked him to ask the American people to slow down their grocery shopping. He said they promised they'll meet the needs of the American people, and they said there is no shortage of supplies. They said the reason everyone is seeing all those empty shelves is because people are buying 3 to 5 times what they normally need. Tom?
All right, Trevor Ault with that important update. Trevor, thank you. Now to America's hospitals bracing for a potentially overwhelming surge of patients. Healthcare workers worried about a shortage of supplies, especially masks. The U.S. with a stockpile of about 12,000 ventilators. The call going out for President Trump to use the Army Corps of Engineers to quickly create new medical facilities. Here's ABC's Marcy Gonzalez.
Tonight, with the number of COVID-19 cases rising, hospitals across the country preparing for a potential crush of patients. Some construction from being pushed to the limits.
If we have a worst case scenario, we've got to admit it, we could be overwhelmed. Are we going to have a worst case scenario? I don't think so. I hope not.
We checked in with hospitals from coast to coast. These California medical centers conducting drills.
We're not seeing too big of an influx with patients right now.
But a much different story tonight at South Shore Health in Massachusetts, where they're seeing high volumes of patients with respiratory symptoms.
We have to assume that when they're coming in, that all of them could have COVID-19. Now, of course, they don't, but we have to be very careful to make sure we maximize our personal protective equipment because we cannot afford to get infected.
In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo warning it could be just weeks before the healthcare system there is overwhelmed, pointing to a shortage of critical ventilators needed to treat the most vulnerable patients in intensive care units.
They are scarce, and you can't find available ventilators no matter how much you're willing to pay.
And while President Trump says masks are now being made by the millions, in Ohio, a nurses union raising concerns about the availability of protective gear.
We are very concerned that when this virus peaks, that we have enough of this equipment for our nurses to take care of our patients properly.
And tonight, New York's governor is calling on President Trump to mobilize the Army Corps of Engineers to convert places like military bases and college dorms into temporary medical centers. Tom?
All right, Marcy, thank you. Overseas now in the staggering headline out of Europe, Italy reporting its deadliest day since the outbreak began, 368 deaths in just 24 hours. Spain emerging as a new hot zone. Germany now closing more than half of its borders. ABC's Julia McFarland in London tonight.
Tonight, cases in Italy spiraling. Over 360 fatalities in the last day, a 25% spike, the deadliest day since the outbreak began. They now have a total of at least 1,800. Pope Francis praying from his balcony to a nearly deserted St. Peter's Square, the Vatican closing Holy Week ceremonies to the public. In Spain, the country is on lockdown.
Keep a safe distance with other people.
Police on loudspeakers warning tourists to be careful of others. The Prime Minister's wife testing positive for coronavirus. Deaths more than doubling in the last 24 hours. 152 reported today alone for a